everybody, DeathsStalker here. So I'm out enjoying a nice warm autumn day, and I thought I'd talk to you about the weekend's MotoGP race from Thailand. And yes, if you read the subject of the video, Marc Marquez is now the 2019 World Champion. In fact, it's his 8th World Championship now. But that was generally how the season was going, was to be expected. But it wasn't easy. It was a very interesting weekend, and it started with a bang. Now, if you were sleeping, especially if you were in North America, because that's when the race was, the practice and whatnot was taking place, you might have felt a little bump. That was Marc Marquez getting rocketed off his Honda RC213 and fired to the moon. He got a high side, something that doesn't happen very often. Wasn't quite certain what had happened. I imagine by now they know what happened, but they're just not releasing the information. But you know, to most people it looked like either he was off the throttle, or maybe the tires were a little bit dirty or cold, because it was just the start of a second session in the first free practice, and he just got spit off the bike. And he went over, and I believe the telemetry said he took a 29G hit. That's 29 times the force of gravity. And he came down on his side, and then he took another little hit and then slid off the track. And what was scary to everybody was he did not get up right away. Normally when Marc has a get off, he's immediately on his feet, either running to the bike, or he is once he finishes rolling, he sees the bike's gone and he's heading towards the pit to get the spare bike. Well, he was on his knees on the ground, and he was not moving fast. Like, he was just sort of sitting there for several seconds, like it felt like about a minute. And he actually had to be helped up by the marshals, and they were going to try to get him on a backboard to get him out of there, but he wasn't having any of it. He just started wobbling away, and within about a minute or so he was sort of walking under his own power. And the bike itself, like I'll put a picture up here. Like, it was absolutely completely destroyed. Like, the rear tire was ripped off the bike, the swing arm was ripped off the bike, the rear ramp wheel, if you can see in the picture, absolutely bent, just silly. And everything else in the bike was pretty much trash as well. They convinced him to get on the track ambulance, but he wouldn't get on the bed. He just got in the back where the attendees normally would sit, and rode back to the medical center. Then they went in and checked him out, and they did a bunch of x-rays, couldn't find anything broken, and then they decided to send him off to the hospital for a full MIR, because like, he took a massive hit. And he didn't want to go because he wanted to get back. He was afraid of missing the practice sessions, and like, he kept saying he's okay, but they finally convinced him, go and get checked out, and he did. And he was actually back just shortly after lunch, and they said other than the fact he's got some bruising and he's going to be stiff and sore, he's okay. And I'll make sure I'll link some videos here, because I know MotoGP actually released the crashes, so you can actually see them from different angles and perspectives and whatnot. Surprisingly, he went out for the second practice session, and he actually went out for his first flying lap and went faster than he did in free practice 1, which sort of like just sucked the life out of all the racers and crews and whatnot and all the teams. They just sort of went like, they were like, wow, they couldn't believe this. And that basically, you could see him, he was moving a little slower, a little more, focused on walking as opposed to focusing on riding, but he was fast. And Saturday they had the practice just before the qualifying, and it was pouring down rain. Like pouring down rain. Actually, he got footage of a crab walking across the racetrack. That's how much water was on the track. And eventually he got on and went up for practice and for qualifying. And in qualifying 2, which is the one that sets the pole, Valentino Rossi slid off in turn 5. He made a slight mistake, and you know, it sort of cost him, but he got himself back. He got on a spare bike, which was not set up the way he wanted, or the tire, but you know, he made the best of what he could do. And Fabio had set the fastest lap, and Marc was actually I think he was like 3rd or 4th fastest or something like that, and Maverick Vinales was 2nd. So Marc was out on a very hot lap. You know, the time was almost expired, so this was going to be his one shot, and he was moving really fast, really hard, and he crashed in turn 5. Now what happened with him was, he said he actually had a problem in 4 where the bike got a head shake, and when that happens, your brake pads have a tendency to move away from the calipers, and when you go to grab the brake lever, you don't have any, because the calipers are just, the first time you pull the lever, they're moving back, you know, towards the rotor. And unfortunately what happens is, especially in MotoGP, it was the same for me in 250, was that, you know, the first time you're pulling the brakes, it's at your braking point, you know, where you need to hit the brakes and stop. If you have no brakes, you've missed your braking point. You're now in trouble, and no matter what you do, you are not going to be making that corner. And Marc knew that. He tried as hard as he could, but the bike just didn't make it. And so that basically ended his chance for pole. And about 5 seconds later, Fabio Quartararo followed him into the same corner and crashed at a slightly different spot in turn 5. So we actually had 3 guys crashing in the same corner, and it was 3 of the top guys. So the end result was Fabio had the pole, Maverick was in 2nd, and Marc was in 3rd. So we come around to the race on Sunday, and everyone pretty much got off just as they were. Maverick had some problem with his tires. Yamaha's been having this problem all year, and he wasn't able to keep the pace up with the guys at the beginning of the race. Later on, his tire was sort of coming back, but he was able to get to a certain point, but there was no way he was going to catch Fabio and Marc. Fabio was leading, just running away. Marc was like right behind him. Andrea Dovizioso, or Dovi, was in 4th, but he wasn't able to catch anybody. He was actually in what would have been called the second group. And basically, unless Marc had fallen off, there was Dovi's chance of keeping the championship alive were gone. So what happened was Marc followed Fabio around and around and around, and 2 laps from the end, he decided to make a try on him, and he you know, he just sort of took a run to sort of see if he could actually make a move on him, and didn't really succeed. But the next lap, when they came around, he got by Fabio right in the first turn, somehow managed to stop the bike, somehow managed to make it turn, and he then just proceeded to try to stay in front as best he could. And Fabio, just the same as what happened last year with Dovi, tried to make a last corner turn to get in front of Marc for the start-finish face to try to beat him across the line. And you know, he definitely got in front, but Marc actually turned in behind him and used the fact that Honda actually turns really well when you try to turn it hard, and that Honda horsepower, and just motored past Fabio to get the win, and of course the MotoGP championship. Now Fabio, of course, was just shattered because he just you know, that's the 2nd race now that Marc has beaten him in the closing stages. Of course, Marc was absolutely thrilled, put on a little show there with a pool table, sinking the 8 ball as you know, for the 8th championship of his career. I give him credit for making that shot, because when you think about it, there's a 26 lap race. The temperature was 40 degrees centigrade with the humidity. The track temperature was over 50. And the last 2 laps, him and Fabio had stepped it up even hotter to push even harder for the win. And then he basically, halfway through his cool down lap, got off, took his helmet off, jumped up on this platform in full racing leathers in the hot humidity and whatnot, got up and made a pool shot and actually sank the 8 ball. And you know, with 1 million people watching that live and on TV, if he had missed it, you know, it would have been all over the internet. But I think he must have practiced a bit, but it was quite impressive. And of course there was a celebration and whatnot, and they're probably still recovering from the celebration. But it was a good show. And the race was excellent. We now have 2 weeks, and then they're off to the 3 flyaways. They're going to Motegi in Japan, then Australia, Malaysia, and then they're going to be back to Valencia for the final, which should be after another 2-week break. So it was a good race. I'll put links to any of the free videos out there that show any of the you know, great moves and whatnot. Again, you should check out MotoGP.com on YouTube. They post all the free stuff that's there, and if you really want to get into it, the best thing I'd suggest is signing up for the streaming service. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Regular motorcycle stuff starts again on Monday. DeathsStalker signing off.